Hello one and all, and welcome back to the RimWorld Clone Army series, where today, my friends, currently we are busy little bees, as it were. We are going to be building our Starship today. Come hell or high water or whatever, we are getting it done. Of course, though, it's not near as easy as just saying that. We still have plenty of resources to collect, so we're going to begin today by purchasing some cloth from a orbital trader. But of course, as you already know, this is nothing but a mere fraction of the amount of cloth and whatnot that we're going to need, so I have something up my sleeve. But until then, we're going to be refueling all of our ships, as well as making plenty of fuel for the Starship. Because I can go ahead and tell you that that Hammerhead cruiser is going to have one big old heaping gas tank. And although it's going to take a very long time, I'm sure we do have plenty of wood to turn into chem fuel, so we should be good. But now you're probably asking yourself, Rat Knight, how do you plan on getting all those resources to even build the ship, though? You still lack a lot of cloth. Well, my friends, we are going to begin conquering the Waster pirate factions, who actually have some massive fields of cotton. And this is going to be really fun and interesting. It's quite different for us because normally we would just bomb the shit out of a settlement and take their resources, but we can't do that here because it would burn all of the crops. So we're going to have to go in and strategically kill everyone before doing so. But if there's anything we in the Clone Army are, my friends, it is strategic and it is winners. I'm not really sure, but anyway, they weren't very excited to see us, so they immediately began trying to bomb us with fire and toxic gas, as one might imagine. But of course, like two heat-seeking rockets of ass-kickery, Wart and CC would begin firing upon the Waster pirates. With such aim, speed, and ferocity, you would assume that they were robots. Well, actually, technically, CC is a robot, but never mind. But as you can tell, those laser blasts were the final nail in the coffin for this settlement, and all of the Waster pirates were beginning to run away like a bunch of pansies. Which of course means it's time for us to start harvesting these sweet resources. This is going to be a nice addition to the cloth that we have back home, but of course there's still much more to do, such as raiding more and more of these Waster pirate settlements for their sweet cloth. Naturally though, first things first, we're going to run all the way back home and drop off this load because we don't want it to get burnt up by mortar fire or anything else like that at the next Waster pirate settlement, so we did that and then began heading to our next target. This settlement also had a beautiful and fine bounty of resources, ripe for the picking, of course. However, they also had something else, what appeared to be some type of makeshift Waster pirate Spartan with stolen UNSC gear, no doubt. We had little concern for these enemies, though, as we were sure that we could defeat them, but it was quite interesting to see that these Waster pirates were somewhat moving up in the world. And these Waster Spartans actually proved to be quite formidable. They were not all that powerful for the most part, but they could take one hell of a hit. And unlike the majority of their comrades, they could sit there and take a hit while also dishing out a fairly heavy hit as well. I gotta be honest, it was pretty respectable, but in the end we would end up killing as many as possible, except for one of them, who ended up getting away as the majority of the Waster forces began descending on us, and we just started killing them, and they all began to flee, of course. Though unfortunately it would appear that CC and Wart were a bit too concerned with the massive mob of Wasters that were coming right at them that they didn't even notice the one that got away, unfortunately. Hopefully we won't be seeing him anytime soon. But of course, if we do, we're not scared. We're gonna kick his ass, let's be honest. Now, of course, with all the enemies cleared out by one way or another, whether they fled or if they're lying on the ground dead, it was time for us to begin harvesting all their crops once again, and then we would end up loading all this cloth into our ship and heading all the way back home, where we would drop it off once more. After returning home, we would take a good while to try and get everything hauled into our storage facility so that I could get a good read on how much cloth and whatnot we actually had overall for the Hammerhead cruiser, you know, and just to kind of sit around and stop raiding places for a little while and actually grow our own cotton in our hydroponics basins, stuff like that. Part of the reason as to why, of course, I wanted to get rid of all the Waster pirates and any other enemies on the planet, but that could be done in due time. Really, I was just trying to gauge which one was more beneficial in terms of getting resources so we can finish our cruiser today. And though growing our own cloth was very useful and whatnot, it did prove true that that raiding was still the better option for us, so that's exactly what we began doing once more. This time around, we would end up raiding a waster pirate settlement in the desert with a massive cotton field, so that means plenty of cloth naturally. And of course, this time around, Napoleon decided to tag along as well, which obviously means that we are going to decimate these forces, which, I mean, we would do anyhow, but Napoleon, Wartwart, and CC, in my opinion, are our 3 strongest warriors for sure. And I feel like that opinion is shown here in full force as the wasters are trying to run out to even get a shot at Wartwart, Napoleon, and CC, as they are just completely annihilating them, evaporating them as they're walking out. With the majority of their compadres reduced to dust in the sand, they began to flee, of course. One poor rapscallion was caught by Napoleon, his jetpack, and his lightsaber. Oh, you poor dumb fool, you'll never get away. And with those few last remaining enemies defeated, it was finally time for us to reap our reward. We began harvesting this beautiful crop for its beautiful cloth, and now we actually have enough cloth to build our ship. Now all we had to do though was get it hauled into our storage facilities. However, we were still missing one crucial part of this resource puzzle. Steel! Yes indeed, we were missing a whole heaping shit ton of steel, but I had an idea. We were going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Of course, we've been talking about building a capital city here on the planet to replace our base, and I've decided that we will choose a location that we're going to build the city at, and we're also going to mine that location for plenty of steel and whatnot as well, right? It was the best thing ever, and that's exactly what we began doing. Even though we had a pretty small squad of clones to do this, we ended up tearing down all of the steel structures in the area, as well as mining all of the steel veins that we could see, and we would begin traveling back and forth, a lot of times, way back and forth, because steel was so heavy. Of course, we had to make several trips. Eventually, though, we had brought it all back, and we finally had enough to build the ship, right? Wrong, actually. I had made a massive miscalculation, for you see, I had completely misread the amount of steel that we needed. It turns out we need 111,250. Damn, I can't even read. So that means that we need exactly, a lot more than we currently have. So it's time for me to really buckle down and just start mining the shit out of a bunch of different locations. I'm actually going to leave the city location alone because I don't want to completely destroy it, so we're not going to touch that one and mine all the mountains or anything there. However, we are going to do that to other locations just as well. We have a holy heaping ton of steel slag chunks all around the base that we've never even touched, so we have all of those that we're going to begin smelting down for steel as well. That's a good idea, but also we don't get a lot of steel from that, so mining is still our best option. But since we've already shredded up all the droid corpses from the previous mini raids that we've had, I thought that smelting these chunks could be something useful for our clones to do in the meantime. Napoleon would also call in a massive steel drop from our empire, which was also extremely useful. And the amount of resources that the Imperials dropped off to us was a massive, massive amount, a massive help as well, but we still required much more. Yes, indeed, for this project to truly be completed, for it to really even begin, honestly, we would have to move literal mountains, and that's exactly what we set out to do for months on end. But then, finally, winter was here, and with it, our collection of resources was finally complete. It was time for us to finish our Hammerhead cruiser once and for all. And if you can't tell by the tone in my voice and how I said that, I am extremely, extremely excited. This has taken absolutely forever. This may be one of the biggest projects I've ever completed in RimWorld. Like, definitely the biggest ship for sure, but the biggest structure, building, whatever, man. It is huge and took forever. And as you'll notice, I didn't actually get the construction on camera. When I came back, it was finished. I would actually let the game play all by itself while the clones were just bringing resources to this, and I would sit and watch TV in my living room. I mean, it literally took hours. I'm not even kidding. I'm thinking next episode we finally begin raiding some other planets possibly for resources and begin building our massive capital city, but let me know what you guys think about that in the comments section. I love you all ever so much, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.